What is up, guys? Zach here from the Chaos Galaxy, and today I am doing a video that's about 2 years too late. I'm finally going through the Chaos Galaxy trading card game official rulebook version 1.0. And I know I've made a couple of videos showing you the rules before, but they are pretty bad videos, to be honest. They're not very well done and they're in no particular order, whereas now, as you can see from this table of contents here, I've gone through every single little detail in the game and I'm going through it in this rule book. So it would take a couple of videos. I'll put some sort of time frame links down below, so if you're just looking for a specific ruling on a specific thing, then you can obviously click on that and just go straight to that chapter. But for those of you who don't know how to play and want to learn right from scratch, then this is the video for you. So I'll get straight into it, starting with Chapter 1, an introduction to the cards. Okay, so Chapter 1, an introduction to the cards. First of all, a game of Chaos Galaxy is when you and an opponent use a galaxy of cards in a head-to-head battle to be the first to reach 20 points and win the game. And all the key terms are the ones written in bold. These are ones that you should know the definitions of if you want to play a game, and they're all defined in the glossary in the back page of the rulebook. So if you don't know what points are, there's a chapter on them later, but if you want to know straight away, then just head back to the glossary. But anyway, so you use a galaxy, which is a deck of 34 to 60 cards, which you can tailor to suit the way you want to play the game and which cards you like. So your deck is completely unique and different to everyone else who you play in the game. So your galaxy will consist of creature cards, which are these blue ones here, resource cards, which are the yellow ones, attachment cards, which are red, and then activator cards, which are purple, and they're the ones here. However, these won't be released until set 2 of the game or the starter decks come out. So at the time I'm making this video, you don't really need to know about activator cards. And if you ever forget this kind of color scheme thing, then it'll say down here in the bottom of the card what type of card it is. So activator, attachment, resource. And then creature cards will have a number instead of saying creature, and that is just equal to the amount of stars that the creature has, but we'll get onto stars later. And then it's recommended that your galaxy is about 50% creatures and then 50% these other three. But again, it just suits whatever galaxy, whatever play style you have or what cards you're using. And then as well as your galaxy, you have one planet card, but don't put this in your galaxy. You don't want to get them mixed up, because a planet card gives you an additional ability which you can use throughout the game, so it'll just stay there the whole time until the game's over. And the planet card that you use should depend on the creatures you use. So as you can see here, Manflaki is from the planet Shios, and if you have a lot of creatures from the planet Shios, then the planet card you should be using is the planet Shios, because only creatures from the planet Shios will work with the ability of the planet card itself, but we'll get onto that later again. There are also a few more subcategories of the main card types. We'll get onto those later though, and we'll start off by talking about your planet, which is where you play the game and where everything takes place. So the planet, as you can see here, there's your planet and your opponent's planet, and it's kind of like the battlefield. They're different to your planet cards. They just sort of sit behind your planet and don't really do anything at the start, but the planets are where everything happens. So you start a game by shuffling your galaxy. Your opponent also shuffles theirs, and remember, your galaxy is just your deck of 34 to 60 cards, and you then draw the top 3 cards from your galaxy to begin the game, and these make up your hand. And make sure you don't show them to your opponent, because otherwise they're going to know what moves you're going to do. Okay, so at the start of the game, your planet should look like this here, and then you and your opponent will decide who goes first by tossing a coin or something, or some other kind of luck-based thing. And then once you decide, the game can begin. So Chaos Galaxy is a turn-based game, and say you're going first, you start your turn by drawing one card from the top of your galaxy. You also gain 4 stars. Now, stars are like the currency of the Chaos Galaxy. You use them to play creatures, do certain abilities, and then build up the defenses on your planet as well. And then you spend your stars throughout the game, but you can't have more than 20. So if you have 20 stars at the start of your turn, you wouldn't actually gain any stars, you just draw a card instead. Same if you had 18 stars at the start of a turn, you just gain 2 instead of 4. And this happens at the start of every turn, so beginning of every turn you gain 4 stars and you get to draw 1 card from your galaxy. So your hand's full, you've got your planet card, you've got your stars, and now you just have your empty planet here which needs some work on it. Which brings us to Chapter 3, which is zones. I'm sorry, this sounds like I'm bombarding you with so much information now, but it will all make sense later. Okay, so zones are the most important part of your planet. You can't actually play any cards if you don't have a zone to play that card in. So in the game there are 3 types of zone. There are creature zones, There are resource zones, and then there are battle zones. And then, as you'd expect, you play creature cards in creature zones, and then you play resource cards in resource zones. You also play activator cards in resource zones, but that doesn't matter too much. Battle zones we'll get to later because they're to do with attacking. But once you have a zone, you can play one card in it, as long as the zone's empty. If a zone already has a card in it, then you can't play another card in that zone. So we gained these 4 stars before, and now we're going to use them to buy a zone. So the first zone of any type will cost you 2 stars. So for example, if you want to play this creature zone here, you'll pay 2 of your 4 stars, so you'll just put them to the side, and now you'll have 2 stars remaining, and you'll get this one creature zone to your planet. And that zone will stay on your planet for the rest of the game. The next thing you need to know is if you want to buy another creature zone, for example, this won't cost you 2 stars, this will cost you 4 stars, because every time you want to buy another zone of the same type, the price doubles. So you have one creature zone here, that'll cost you 2 stars. You want to buy another creature zone, then you'll have to pay 4, unfortunately. And then if you want to buy a third creature zone, it'll cost you 8 stars. And then if you want to buy another one, it doubles again, so it's 16. And then after this, any zones you want to buy will cost you 20, because 20 is the maximum amount of stars you can have. But to be honest, once you get 4 zones on your planet, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to buy more. And say you do have this, say you do have like 5 creature zones on your planet. Although you've got a massive amount of these, you don't have any resource zones yet. So the first resource zone that you'd want to buy would only cost you 2 again. And then the next resource zone you want to buy would cost you 4, and then it'd double up the same way that creature zones do. But regardless of how many creature zones you have, your resource zones will still just increase in the same way. So there's no relation between the two, really. Another thing though, say I have 2 creature zones on my planet. So I've paid 2 stars for one and then 2 stars for another, like that. So I've paid 2 stars for one creature zone and then 4 stars for this second creature zone. If my opponent somehow has a card ability that would remove a zone from my planet, if I then want to buy that zone back, that zone would only cost me 4 again. It wouldn't cost me 8 stars as if I were buying a third zone, because I only have 1 zone left on my planet. So you play that zone again as if you never had it on your planet in the first place. Okay, now you've got a creature zone on your planet, you can go ahead and look into playing some creature cards. So to play a creature card into a creature zone, you need to cost play that creature. And a cost play is very simple. It's just like buying a zone. You pay stars equal to the stars on the creature to play it into a creature zone. So because we only have 2 stars remaining, because we paid 2 for this creature zone, we can only play a 2-star or lower creature. For example, Orbov here. He only has 2 stars, as you can see here. So we could go ahead and cost play him into that creature zone. And these are all the parts of a creature card. They have the most complicated template out of all the different cards. But first up here, we have the creature's name. We then have the creature's power and health rating. These are used for when you're attacking your opponent's creatures and when your opponent's attacking you. You then have the creature's home planet, which is used for your planet card abilities and other card abilities. The creature's stars are indicated here and also in the bottom left behind this arrow. Then got the creature's artwork, which is just for fun. We've then got the creature's ability. Only some creatures have abilities, but make sure to read a creature's ability because it could be really powerful. There's some more information on this at the end of the rulebook, so I'll go into that then. We then have the creature's ID. So this is just to keep track of which creatures you've got and which creatures you don't have. So this card is from P1, which stands for Pack 1, and it's card number 4. So we've cost played an Orbov to our planet. Nice and easy. We don't have any stars left. But then if you notice Orbov's ability, it says he can be free played. Free playing a creature can be quite difficult. It can only be done by card abilities. You can't just randomly go, okay, I don't want to pay stars for this, so I'm going to free play it. It can only be done if a card tells you to. So there are often strict requirements for you to do this, and as you can see from Orbov's ability here, you'll have to wait until he's killed before you can free play him. So we can't do anything with that at the moment. So that's basically creature cards. Next up are resource cards, which are the next most important cards. So if you want to play a resource card, just like creature cards, you're going to have an empty resource zone added to your planet by paying 2 stars in this example, because you don't already have any resource zones there. Resource cards are good because they don't actually cost you any stars to play, although some of them might have abilities which require you to pay stars or do certain things to use. And there are 2 types of resource card. There are single-use resource cards, which just say resource in the bottom corner, and then there are permanent resource cards, which say permanent resource in the bottom corner. The templates for these are a lot more simple than creature cards. It just has the name, the artwork, the ability, and then the type of resource, and then of course as well the card count and card rarity. So single-use resource cards are played during your turn from your hand into an empty resource zone on your planet, and then the ability of that resource card must be used instantly, and then the resource card is killed straight away as it's been used. For example, Galaxy's Gift here, you'd play it into a resource zone, read its ability, you gain 2 stars, so you'd increase your star count by 2, and then Galaxy's Gift would be killed. It's as simple as that. Permanent resource cards, however, you play these from your hand during your zone just like normal resource cards. The only thing is they're pretty cool because they stay in that zone forever until the card is either killed or the game ends. And as long as the permanent resource card is on your planet in a resource zone, its ability will just continue to go off. A few tips though, make sure you read a resource card thoroughly before you play it, because you don't want to use it at the wrong time or your opponent could win straight away. Another tip is don't use too many permanent resource cards in your galaxy, because otherwise you won't have any resource zones left to play single-use resource cards. And also make sure you have a few cards that can actually kill permanent resource cards in your galaxy. Otherwise, if your opponent plays a really problematic one, then it's going to stay there for the rest of the game and you'll have no way of getting past it. Okay, Chapter 6 is attachment cards, and these are probably the most simple types of cards. They're very similar to resource cards in the sense they don't have stars, a planet, power or health rating. However, they are very unique because they don't actually take up any zones. Attachment cards are just simply attached to a creature on a player's planet, and then they share the zone with that creature. Another cool thing about attachment cards is that you can play an attachment card from your hand to a creature on either player's planet. It doesn't just have to be your cards. There are some ones that do really damaging effects to your opponent's cards, or there are some cards that power up your own creatures. For example, here, Galactisaber. The attached creature's power is increased by 70, so obviously you're going to want to play that on one of your creatures. So here's an example of how you play a attachment card onto a creature. So you play Galactisaber from your hand, it attaches to your Manflaki. Manflaki then gains 70 power, so he's now on 320. And then if this Manflaki would be killed, the Galactisaber would be killed with it. Okay, and there's no limit to the amount of cards that can be attached to one creature. So you could have 2 copies of Galactisaber and 3 other random attachment cards, all attached to the same Manflaki. However, this is a bit risky because if that Manflaki is killed, then all the cards attached to it will be killed at the same time as well. So you've got to be careful with things that you attach your cards to. And then also, once you've attached an attachment card to a creature, you can't just say, oh no, I want to attach it to this different creature and switch it. So be careful before you play your attachment cards. Okay, and then Chapter 7, I think this is the last chapter I'm going to go through today because it's getting quite a long video, are Activator cards. And Activator cards are again similar to resource cards. They're even played in resource zones. However, they can only be played at specific times, called the card's activation time. And this will be normally in response to something happening. So they're like resource cards, but you have to play them at a certain time. And although resource cards can only be played during your turn, Activator cards could be played in your opponent's turn, depending on the card's activation time. So for example, I'll simplify it a bit. For example, this card here, Crash Landing. As you can see, it's got its name, artwork, and then the activation time here, and then the card ability afterwards. So it says, when your opponent plays a creature. So this is going to be during your opponent's turn. You have your Crash Landing in your hand. Your opponent plays a creature during their turn. Then you go ahead and play your Crash Landing because it's the right activation time. You play it into one of your resource zones, and then you read its card ability and use that card ability. So when your opponent plays the creature, that creature's power and health are permanently halved. Then all Activator cards are similar to single-use resource cards in the sense that you just play them, use its ability, and then the card is killed in sort of one swift action. However, this halving ability will be permanently applied to the opponent's creature. So yeah, just a tip here, always make sure you're ready to play an Activator card in your opponent's turn, because if they're going through moves quite quickly, you need to play them at the right time, even if it's not your turn. And then there's quite a complicated ruling here at the bottom actually. Say 2 cards have abilities which sort of activate at the same time. So for example, Pelfam here says when he's cosplayed, you return a card on either player's planet to its owner's hand. But then say in response to your opponent playing the Pelfam, you use Erratic Void, which says when your opponent cosplays a creature, you kill that creature. So there's a kind of conflict here because Pelfam gets an ability when it's cosplayed, but your Erratic Void gets an ability when Pelfam's cosplayed as well. So what would happen here is the Activator takes the sort of priority, and Pelfam would not get to use its ability to return a card to its owner's hand. It would just die, and Erratic Void would sort of be the sort of winning card in that situation. So it's kind of like the Pelfam was never actually played in the first place. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, you can just leave them in the comments for me, because that is quite a complicated ruling there. So that's it for this video, guys. Please, if you have any questions about the rules for the Chaos Galaxy TCG, then let me know in the comment section and I'll try and explain them as best I can. But like I said, if there's any specific rulings you want to go back to, there'll be time frames in the description. That means you can just quickly refer back to those. And also there'll obviously be part 2 of this video coming in the next few days. So if there's anything I haven't covered yet, then it'll probably be covered in that video. But apart from that, please like, comment, subscribe. Head on to thegamecrafter.com if you want to pick up some packs of the Chaos Galaxy trading card game set 1. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.